Hello everyone, I am the Benedict Kirby, and welcome to my channel, The Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. The Brewery is a series on this channel showcasing my spicy brews under the deck text. On this episode of The Brewery, I'll be discussing my take on a commander from the Lord of the Rings, Frodo, Sauron's Bane. If you like this card or any of the cards I'll be mentioning throughout the video, please consider using my TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing those cards. You can find that link down in the description. It'll really help out the channel. But the very best way to help support the channel is with my Patreon. There are plenty of perks for being a patron, such as early access to certain videos, exclusive deck text, gifts, and more. You can also support my channel for free by simply liking, subscribing, and sharing, which also helps out a lot. I put out a video every Monday, so you don't want to miss out. You can join my Discord server for free if you want to join the Commander Tavern community. All pertinent links are down in the description. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Frodo is a 1/2 halfling citizen for 1 white. However, since both of his activated abilities have black mana symbols, he has a white-black color identity. For 2 white-black hybrid mana, you can turn Frodo into a 2/3 halfling scout with lifelink if he's a citizen. This is important for his second ability since it depends on him being a scout. If he is, you can pay the triple black to turn him into a halfling rogue with a combat damage triggered ability that has The Ring Tempts You. However, if The Ring has tempted you 4 more times that game, dealing combat damage to a player will remove them from the game. Frodo is essentially a player remover, which is the best kind of Voltron commander. Why get up to 21 commander damage when one single point of damage getting through is enough? The ring is also an interesting mechanic. The first time it tempts you, you get an emblem that increases in effects each time you are tempted. However, each previous effect remains present. Additionally, if you choose a creature to be your ring bearer, this is a new designation, like being a commander. However, this designation goes away once the creature leaves the battlefield or another player gains control of it. Fortunately, the backside of the physical card representing this emblem explains how to use it. It's definitely interesting and is an integral part of this commander, so make sure you familiarize yourself with this mechanic when piloting a Frodo Sauron's Bane deck. If you managed to see my short for this card, I went over the main strategy I would apply when building Frodo. Those being protecting him, making him unblockable, and then giving him double strike to accelerate the process. Starting with protection, the deck's running Champion's Helm, Commander's Plate, Swift of Boots, Sword of Body of Mind, and Sword of Fire and Ice. The first 3 should be pretty obvious includes. However, keep in mind that protection from colors is actually pretty important since it has 2 main functions here. Protection from targeted effects and damage, as well as making the equipped creature unblockable to creatures of those colors. This kills 2 birds with 1 stone here. The sword's triggered effects are also an amazing bonus. That stat pump is also a bonus since we don't really need Frodo to be big to kill an opponent. The other swords are excluded because giving Frodo protection from either white and or black means not being able to target him with our own effects, which will be quite the problem. Case in point, Giver of Runes, Mother of Runes, and Squelch Defector Might. If he had protection from white, we wouldn't be able to target him with these 3 creatures. Not only are these instant speed protective effects, but they can also potentially make Frodo unblockable depending on an opponent's board. Going against a monocolored deck is quite the blessing for us here. And they can also protect other utility creatures in the deck. Seasoned Dungeoneer provides a similar protective effect concerning blocking. While not providing protection from a color per se, protection from creatures means being unblockable. However, if any creatures had any combat tricks that target things, they wouldn't be able to target Frodo in combat either. It's pretty niche, but once Frodo is a rogue, he's got protection from creatures when he attacks. He also explores as a bonus. Another bonus is gaining the initiative when Seasoned Dungeoneer enters the battlefield. This might make you a target, but at least if the initiative is going around the board, we can get it later. Especially since venturing through Undercity gives us a lot of rooms that are quite useful to a white-black deck like this one. Each room is useful depending on the situation. There's a reason most initiative cards are banned in higher power formats. Conspiracy makes it easier for Frodo as well as our other creatures to be rogues. However, it's included mostly to make Frodo a scout. If we choose scout as the creature type, then Frodo is always a scout and we can skip directly to his triple black ability. That way we can save 2 mana each time Frodo leaves the battlefield. Bastion Protector and Vexillix Praetor help us deter somewhat by giving him indestructible and protection from everything respectively. The best thing about the Praetor is it having flash, which can be used when opponents least expect it. Same with casting either Clever Concealment and Teferi's Protection in response to a board wipe. These are especially useful since the deck has plenty of artifacts to help the cause. So being able to protect all of those equipment as well as our commander and utility creatures is a given. Speaking of, Darksteel Plate, Shield of Cauldron, Mithril Coat, and Hammer of Nazan all give Frodo indestructible. The first 3 having indestructible themselves is an amazing bonus and makes dealing with our commander that much more difficult. However, the Colt also has flash and auto-equips to Frodo when entering the battlefield, which is yet another sneaky way of getting around destruction effects. So keep in mind to play these types of effects reactively for maximum value and pro-gamerness. Hammer of Nazan also auto-equips, but also makes it so that any other equipment also auto-equips. This equipment does a lot of work here. Ardent Intrepid Archaeologist and Brass Squire also help with equipping things to Frodo. With Arden, anytime Frodo manages to get dealt with, which should be quite infrequently, but it can still happen, you can still equip all equipment onto him at the beginning of combat on your turn, essentially saving you all of that mana. Brass Squire being able to be activated at instant speed makes it quite the reactive tool. You can essentially swap around protective equipment amongst utility creatures in response to targeted effects or destruction. Don't sleep on this card in equipment decks like this one. Homeward Path is yet another protective effect that shouldn't be slept on for Voltron decks, especially since it doesn't take up a slot in the deck. While getting Frodo stolen isn't the end of the world for us, it still sets us back significantly, so it's worth it to include if you want it. It's also getting a Lord of the Rings version in the set, which is nice for flavor. The previous protective effects aren't the only ones in the deck either. The deck is also running Bilbo's Ring and Whispersoul Cloak. However, apart from giving Hexproof and Shroud respectively, they make the equipped creature unblockable. This is key to victory in the deck since Frodo needs to only connect once after the ring has tempted you 4 times. As a massive bonus, Bilbo's Ring can also draw us cards and only requires 1 mana to equip since Frodo is always a halfling. Unless you have Conspiracy with Scout in play, so keep that in mind. Prowler's Helm is another equipment that makes Frodo unblockable, albeit with the caveat of the creature not being a wall. That is quite the uncommon creature type though, so it shouldn't be a problem. Same with giving him Shadow with Dothi Embrace. Creatures with Shadow are few and far between in Commander games, so this is as good as unblockable as it comes. All for just double black each time to activate. Or you can once again go for that pro gamer move giving an opponent's creature Shadow so that they can't be blocked or blocked for those epic political plays. I love this enchantment. Suspicious Bookcase, Manifold Key, and Tanos' Wand make Frodo outright unblockable. Do be careful with the wand though. If Frodo's stats are increased, we might not be able to target him with it. However, any pump after the fact is still okay. As a bonus, the key can be used to untap artifacts. I've used this to untap things like Brass Squire and Soul Ring for extra mana. So your imagination is the limit for it, but it's mostly used for the unblockability. Access Tunnel, Rogue's Passage, and Shizod's Storehouse also have ways to give Frodo evasion without taking up slots in the deck. Access Tunnel has the same caveat as Tanos' Wand, so be wary of Frodo's stats when attempting to activate it. Shizo giving Fear isn't outright unblockability, but not everyone plays black, so you still have the odds in your favor of someone being unable to block Frodo thanks to it. Now that we saw how to protect Frodo and then make him unblockable for the sneaky Voltron kill, let's see the double strike effects that help us accelerate that bitter end. Flaming Fist, Duelist Heritage, Avenging Hunt Bonder, Silverblade Paladin, Brass Knuckles, Fire Shrieker, Grappling Hook, and Holy Avenger get the job done. The first 2 being enchantments is great because that makes them much harder to get rid of than creatures and artifacts. That being said, with how much the deck synergizes with equipment, having 4 different equipment to give double strike provides redundancy. The odds of naturally drawing into a double strike effect is much higher. Halvar God of Battle is also included as a way to give Frodo double strike. Well, not just Frodo, but any creature we control that's equipped. Not only that, but he can swap around at least 1 equipment at the beginning of combat. However, if we already have a double strike effect in play, we also have the option of casting this card as Sword of the Realms, which is yet another protective effect in the deck. Well, it doesn't prevent Frodo dying, but if he did, he returns to our hand. And casting him from our hand bypasses any commander attacks he might have accumulated, meaning that we could just get him back into play for just 1 white mana. Loxodon Warhammer and Shadow Spear don't give double strike, but are amazing when Frodo does have double strike. These help us gain life as well as pumping Frodo in case we're low in life and need to bounce back. Best of all, they also give Trample, which is yet another type of evasion for all effects and purposes in this deck. Frodo just needs to connect, even if it's just 1 point of damage. As a bonus, Shadow Spear can also be used to take away Hexproof and Indestructible from our opponent's permanents, so there's that too. Stonehewer Giant helps us get these important equipment along with any other key equipment in the deck. While the deck has plenty of redundancy, being able to tutor things like Hammer of Nazan, Whispersoul Cloak, Shadow Spear, etc. straight onto the battlefield is no joke, especially since that equipment enters attached to a creature we control. This is possibly one of the best utility creatures in the deck. While testing the deck, I tend to first get a protective equipment onto this giant first and then get others. Vorpal Sword is another amazing equipment to tutor for. This helps gives us some redundancy in case Frodo is dealt with. Again, while rare, given the protective effects in the deck, it's not impossible. It does require a hefty amount of mana to activate in order to kill off an opponent, but it's still important to have commander redundancy in a commander deck. With so many equipment in the deck, Pure Steel Paladin and Stram Senior Edificer are being included is also a given. Not only do they provide some much needed card draw effects, but the Paladin also gives our equipment a free equip cost if we meet the Metalcraft requirement. Suffice it to say, we'll definitely meet it. The following cards are the deck's interactions, card advantage, and mana acceleration pieces. Divine Reckoning, Promise of Loyalty, and Slash the Ranks are the quintessential Voltron board wipes. Granted, opponents can still keep their commander or more important creature, but so can we, especially if we have Frodo online to murder whoever he hits next. Or maybe we can afford to lose Frodo if that meant keeping something like Sram, Stonehewer Giant, etc. Now to be outdone, Damnation, and Wrath of God are also included. Sometimes the entire board needs to be wiped. Having 6 board wipes in the deck might seem like overkill, but Voltron decks tend to be weak against Horde decks, so it's always good to include ways to cover your deck's weaknesses. Other end, Vindicate and Generous Gift are the targeted removal effects, and these are included because they can hit any permanent, including lands. Well, at least the first 2. Hitting lands is important because we don't want to have to deal with Maze of Ith types of effects, at least until Frodo gets Shroud and or Hexproof. But Strip Mine and Wasteland are good enough for that. While I would like to say that these do not take up slots in the deck, they do need to be sacrificed so we're trading lands. They're not always needed as removal effects in games though. However, they're great at dealing with lands like Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, Cabal Coffers, Gaia's Cradle, etc. So they still have their uses. Just keep your own mana in mind. Black Market Connections, Phyrexian Arena, Call of the Ring, and Eye of Vecna are amazing zero-effort card draw effects. They require life to use, which is another reason why Loxodon Warhammer and Shadow Spear are also good in the deck. You could also get Sacrifice Fodder and Treasure with Black Market Connections. Sacrifice Fodder is important because Edict effects are also a weakness to Voltron decks. Call of the Ring is another way to have the ring tempt us, further accelerating our murderous goals. Mind's Eye is great if we have the extra mana. While white can struggle with card advantage, the deck also being black means we don't have to just rely on cards like Mind's Eye, but it's great in the mid to late game if we're running out of steam. Tome of Legends and War Room also require mana to use, but they're still worth including, especially the land since it doesn't take up a spell slot. Tome of Legends is great in Voltron decks and this one is no exception. However, all of these card draw effects pale in comparison to Necropotence, the granddaddy of black card advantage. Triple black isn't a problem for the deck, it's even in Frodo's activated ability. The deck is running Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, so we don't have to worry about color fixing anytime soon. What's best about this enchantment is that we're not really drawing cards, so it won't trigger anything opponents might have concerning card draw. Such a broken card. As for mana acceleration, Wayfarer's Bauble, Navigation Orb, Burnished Heart, Bitterthorn, Nissa's Animist, and Sword of the Animist also get the job done. The deck isn't really mana hungry, so you can include Cabal Coffers as well if you're also running Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. But testing showed that it's just fine with this. Oh, and with Sol Ring too. But turn 1 Sol Ring isn't really that busted here since all of Frodo's costs are colored, but it's still worth running for all the generically costed spells and effects in the deck. Besides, you can spiffy it up with the ring version of it for the flavor win. The rest of the deck is just the rest of the lands. The deck's running all 7 fetch lands, Godless Shrine, Snowfield Sinkhole, Sunlit Marsh, Vault of Champions, Fetid Heath, Concealed Courtyard, Isolated Chapel, Shattered Sanctum, Silent Clearing, Tainted Field, Caves of Koilos, Reflecting Pool, Command Tower, and Ancient Tomb, as well as 4 plains and 2 swamps for the basic land ramp effects in the deck. As with all of my deck techs, you can build your mana base according to your budget. Whether you include more expensive cards or even cheaper cards is up to you. You do you. This brew is just an idea of how to build around Frodo, Sauron's Bane. The Lord of the Rings installment of Magic the Gathering injecting a whopping 121 legendary creatures into the Commander format. Is Frodo Sauron's Bane one of the best ones? No. Is it interesting? I think so. I like how it's simple to build around yet at the same time provides something slightly different to the Voltron archetype since it's not about how much damage but simply getting through. If you're interested in the deck list of this spicy brew of mine, you can find a link to it down in the description. I would like to thank all my patrons for supporting me and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons, the brewers, for their patronage. I'd also like to thank anyone using my TCG Player affiliate link. That also helps out the channel. And to everyone, thanks for watching this episode of The Brewery on the Commander Tavern. I am the Bandit Kirby, and happy brewing.